The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Oklahoma City Thunder are heading to the NBA Finals.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Oklahoma City Thunder making their return to the NBA Finals, their first trip since 2012, as this rebuild continues to play out just as the Thunder had hoped. They're now 4 wins away from an NBA championship. They've climbed the mountain and gotten back to the top of the NBA world, winning the Western Conference for the second time in franchise history and completely dismantling the Minnesota Timberwolves. This was a game that was uncompetitive, to say the least. Minnesota just had no chance in this one. And it was because of the things that the Thunder did all season long, showing up in the biggest game. They always say that the toughest win to get is not only the next one, but the closeout win of a series. Up 3-1 at home, the Paycom Center was rocking, and the Thunder rolled 124-94 in a game that is worse than the scoreboard would indicate. At one point, OKC was up 39 points. I mean, it was 2-0 Timberwolves, then it was tied, and then the Thunder onslaught began. The Thunder's defense has been their bread and butter. They've been historically great. You can go back in an early October on this very show, hear me discussing how historically great this defense would be. And they continue tonight to have these avalanche-like runs where there was a spurt in that first quarter and that first half where it felt like Minnesota just could not stop turning the ball over. They couldn't get out of their own way. And eventually, Minnesota ends up with 21 turnovers as this game was played in garbage time. A lot of those turnovers came as the Thunder were growing that lead to give OKC that lead. The Thunder turned them over. The Thunder out-rebounded them. The Thunder outworked them, out-efforted them, out-physicaled them. Like they were the more physical team. They were the team that had the most heart. They were the team that had the most grit, the most toughness, the most fight. And their defense was the star of the show. They completely and utterly took Anthony Edwards out of this entire series. Anthony Edwards is one of the best players in this league, and he was irrelevant for this series. He was forced to be a playmaker. He was forced to be a passer. To his credit, he made the right decisions. He made great passes. His teammates, couldn't come through for him enough, but he couldn't will them to this win. He couldn't will them in this series. He couldn't lead them as a scorer because the Thunder's defense was just too tough. That's not an indictment on Anthony Edwards. That is an appraisal of this Thunder defense, which makes everybody look that way. Like even Nikola Jokic, who's widely considered the best player in the world and who did take this Thunder team to 7 games. Like there were moments in that series where he looked lost, where he looked like he couldn't figure it out. And he's the most cerebral, most talented player in this league, and the MVPs that he has on his shelf show that. So this is not an indictment on Anthony Edwards that you couldn't get it done against the Thunder because of how great their defense is, because this defense was tailor-made to take away top scoring options. Look how many times that they've let up a 30-point night, especially from a guard. It hasn't happened very often for OKC. It hasn't happened very often for anybody. And then Julius Randle he couldn't get out of his own way. I mean, he was just dreadful for the most of this series. He was dreadful tonight. He gave up on plays because the Thunder broke their spirits. The Thunder's defense, as they're swarming you, as they're harassing you, as they're playing into your body, as they're being physical yet disciplined, and you keep turning it over, there are multiple plays where Julius Randle got his pockets picked and didn't even take a step toward the other side of the floor. Just didn't even want to try to play transition defense and to get back on defense. Because the Thunder will break you down, and they broke the Timberwolves down. This did not look like a team desperate to save their season. The Thunder forced them to look like a team who was desperate to get to Cancun, and that's where they're heading because of the Thunder's defense that held Minnesota to 21 turnovers, only 39 rebounds to the Thunder's 46. They shot 41% from the floor, 35% from three, and 80% at the free throw line. The Thunder dominate points in the paint. They were tied in second chance points. Fast break points went OKC's way, and the Thunder roll as they make 52% of their shots, 40% from three, and 85% at the free throw line for OKC, winning 124-94. And this series was a short one. I thought it was going to be a long one. Hand up, I was wrong. I thought the series was going to go 7 games, and it did not. It went 5 games. It was a gentleman's sweep for OKC, which was outside of Game 3. Way more dominant than not, right? The Game 3 was a lopsided blowout loss to Minnesota. Game 4 was nip and tuck, but Game 1, 2, and 5, just a complete and utter domination of this Minnesota Timberwolves squad. And the Thunder went out and took the Western Conference Finals. I mean, there's good reason why this Thunder team was doubted to some extent, right? Like yes, some of the doubting of them went too far, but this Thunder team making it to the NBA Finals is a complete and utter anomaly because you're not supposed to be able to do it as the youngest team in the field. You're not supposed to be able to do it at the age that this Thunder team is. One of their most important players is a 21-year-old in Cason Wallace. Their number 2 option is J-Dub, who's a 30-year player. The number 3 option is Chet Holmgren, who has a season and a half of NBA basketball under his belt due to injury. Like, this stuff is not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to be this good this fast. And those guys stepped up in a massive way all series long, and specifically tonight. The injection of a veteran like Alex Caruso has paid dividends for this Thunder team in the playoffs to this point. Isaiah Hartenstein was a massive addition to fix a need. Like, this Thunder team has built a juggernaut. I mean, 68 wins in the regular season, and now you go 4-7-5 en route to the NBA Finals, and now you await the Eastern Conference winner, which obviously seems like it's going to be Indiana as they're up 3-1 in that series. But tonight's game was a blowout, and you're not going to remember it the way that you will say Game 4, which was an awesome game and one of the best games of the playoffs so far. But you should, because the Thunder just opened up a can on Minnesota. Minnesota, from the 10-minute mark of the first quarter, knew their fate, and they just outright quit because they had to. Because the Thunder made them quit. They had no answers. They couldn't stop OKC. They couldn't score on OKC. All they could do was wait for the time to expire. All they could do was sit on their hands and hope to God that that game would mercifully end, and it did. Jaden McDaniels was terrible. Julius Randle was not good. I mean, he had 24 points on 57% shooting, largely in garbage time. The 4 turnovers doomed them in this game. Anthony Edwards was not good in this game. Mike Conley was not good in this game. Rudy Gobert was not good in this game. None of their role players, were good in this game. Nobody played good for Minnesota, and everybody played well for Oklahoma City. And that's kind of the story of tonight. The Thunder were the more assertive team, the more forceful team, and the Thunder were the team that I think showed how uncommon they are, as they've done throughout the season, of learning the lessons and learning the approach that you have to take to these things and what's required of you in a closeout game. That Denver series was huge for them because really throughout the run of NBA history, that Denver series should have been a roadblock. That Denver series should have been, like through the course of NBA history, a series that you take with you into the summertime and improve from there. The fact that this Thunder team could survive that Denver series, and not just survive it, but implement the lessons learned from that series into this one. And we'll talk about how J-Dub's done that, how Shea's done that coming up. But overall, for this first segment, it's just a hats off to the defense. It's a hats off to this Thunder team that continues to be doubted and continues to prove people wrong. And they did it in 5 games against Minnesota, the team that had been there before, the team that many people, some people had picked to win this series. The Thunder took care of business. What a game. What a moment. What a season this has already been for OKC, and it's still going. It's still going to the NBA Finals, and they still await their opponent, which, again, we expect to be the Indiana Pacers. The Thunder just thoroughly dominated this game. They made this game a laugher, largely due to SGA, who scored or assisted on 24 of the Thunder's first 26 points. He ends up with 34 individual points. He ends up with 8 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals. He shoots 56% from the floor, 2 for 4 from 3, and 4 for 4 at the charity stripe. Oh, only 4 free throws, and one of them was handed to him by Chris Finch's whining, complaining, utterly useless self because he could not coach his way out of a paper bag in this series. He had no adjustments, no answers for Oklahoma City, and all he could do was complain about the refs, and look where it got them. SGA was fantastic. He was in control of this game. He was in command of this game as a playmaker. He set his teammates up extremely well, but also just breaking down the Minnesota defense and understanding the assertiveness that was needed in a game like this as a scorer, but also making the adjustments to the Timberwolves physicality and kind of pushing back against it. It's similar to what you saw Jokic do, where it's like, he saw the adjustment of the Thunder being more physical with him, and then he became the guy to hit first. And in game 3, it felt like, it felt like Minnesota was the guy to hit first in game 3. And in the last 2 games, SGA has just taken over that reign and bumped guys off their spots and been able to get to the rim at will, and utilizing that step back in the mid-range, just dictating where, when, and how he was going to score, and then going and doing it. And the Timberwolves had no answer. They had no resistance. They just could not stop him. And he got the unanimous Western Conference Finals MVP because of it. I thought that Shea was stellar. And then he drew the illegal screen that left Naz Reid and Chris Finch crying, surprise, surprise, to really salt this game away for the most part. Plus 23 points in this one, plus 23 in the plus minus in this one with 34 minutes played. SGA was stellar. I thought the J-Dub was really good. His box score is nowhere near the gaudy line that it has been in other games this postseason, but it didn't need to be because this was such a blowout. It was such an onslaught. It was only 19 points for him, but it was 19 efficient points on 50% shooting. He also had a block and a steal and 5 assists and 8 rebounds. J-Dub plays with such better force now than he did even 2 weeks ago. And J-Dub is like the picture poster child of how great this should feel for Oklahoma City to be this anomaly, to be a team no team in NBA history has ever done what the Thunder are doing right now. No team in NBA history has ever gotten to this point with not overlapping primes, guys not in their prime, like guys not even scratching their prime yet. And it's because of J-Dub and because of Chet that they are here, along with SGA, of course. But with J-Dub, again, 2 weeks ago against Denver, that game 6, where he had a dreadful stat line, that's the kind of game that most young players have to take with them to the summertime to get better. And it kind of lingers with them in the game 7. Then that's how you see like the losses stack up in a series, right? That you have a young player who you're really counting on. They have a bad game, and then it turns into 2 bad games, and then you've lost a series. For him to take that bad game 6, turn it into a stellar game 7 against Denver, and then a stellar series against Minnesota was critical in the Thunder's ability to get to the NBA Finals, but also a testament to, like, this team's not going anywhere. They're going to keep getting better. Chet Holmgren, who's played a year and a half of NBA basketball in total and broke his hip in November and is playing at this level now, is going to have a whole summer to get better and get distance from that hip injury and get better condition, better equipped for NBA basketball, while he's already making a championship level impact. He could have a ring on his finger while he's doing those off-season trials and tribulations to get better. Like, this team is beyond set up for the future.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. How about that? I love FanDuel because they make betting easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists, there are so many ways to bet your favorite players. Plus, after the game tips, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Place that first $5 bet on your favorite NFL team. The Green Bay Packers happen to be plus 260 to win the NFC North right now. Plus 320 to get over 11.5 wins. Ooh, that's juicy. I might have to go bet that right now. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
What just happened? How did the Timberwolves lose an elimination game by 30?
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast.
I just want to talk about Game 5. We'll talk about what happened to Game 5 against Oklahoma City. Early in this game, like the first handful of possessions, OKC wasn't playing well. I mean, they didn't score until the game was more than 2 minutes in. The problem was Minnesota couldn't score either. The Timberwolves made one bucket. It was their second offensive possession. There was a bit of a rush. Jaden McDaniels 3 got his own rebound and then rushed a putback and missed. On their next rebound, or their next possession, or I guess it was later the same possession. It was a multiple effort possession. Julius Randle knocks down a 3. Wolves are up 3-0. OKC doesn't score for a couple possessions. They have a shot clock violation, but then Jaden McDaniels misses another shot, so he starts the game 0 for 3 in the first minute and a half. OKC doesn't score until the 9:42 mark. And then from that moment forward, the floodgates were absolutely just thrown open. Minnesota didn't score again after the Julius Randle 3 on the opening possession of the game until the 6:53 mark, after they had to call a timeout. They were down 11-3 before Chris Finch called a timeout. 7:11 left in the first quarter. And Ant hits a 2 with at the 6:53 mark. And in between there, we had multiple bites at the apple for the Wolves from the corners. In fact, in the first quarter of this game, Minnesota attempted 5 corner threes, and they made none of them. Sorry, 4 corner threes in the opening quarter. 3 from Jaden McDaniels in the left corner, 2 on the same possession. He missed all 3 of his threes from the left corner, and Julius Randle missed one from the right corner. We came into this series talking about how many corner threes Oklahoma City allows and how well the Wolves shoot corner threes. That did not happen in this series, save for the Game 3 blowout win when they won by 42. Minnesota was 0 for 4 from the corners in the first quarter. They were 2 for 4 from the corners in the second quarter. They had their opportunities, but you can't go 2 for 8. And they're, by and large, open shots. Overall, from 3 in the first quarter, Minnesota was 1 for 9. 1 for 9 on three-point attempts in the first quarter. They had more turnovers than they did field goal makes in the first quarter of this game. And the only 3 they made, by the way, was Julius Randle on that first possession. That was it. So Minnesota was actually generating the corner threes that they want, and OKC will allow you to have. They just miss them. And the Thunder kind of premise of we'll let Jaden McDaniels shoot corner threes, to his heart's content. That premise finally succeeded for them. I shouldn't say finally. They won the series in 5, but it succeeded in a massive way in this game. That's not why the Wolves lost the first 2 games. It was certainly part of it. They shot below 30% in each of them. And I said so many times on this show, hey, they're not going to shoot sub 30% from 3 again. And they didn't. They shot 50% the next game, and they were over 40% last game, Game 4. They were 35% in this game. But early when it really mattered, they hit, Dillingham hit it 1 in garbage time. I guess TJ Shannons wasn't garbage time. Minot hit 1 in garbage time. There were a couple of hit late as the Wolves were trying to come back. Julius Randle in the third quarter. But when it really, really mattered, they hit 2 threes in the first half of this game. Were 0 for 4 in the first quarter from outside the arc and 1 for 9 in the first quarter, 0 for 4 from the corners. Those shots that OKC allowed them to have, they just simply missed. And then on top of that, on the possessions where they weren't getting the ball to the corner, they were turning it over. Some primary culprits here. I'm going to point the finger at Julius Randle. I know he led the Wolves in scoring in this game. I know he had 24 points on 14 shots. It looks like he had the best offensive game. But I'll tell you what, when this game was still a game, Julius Randle did not play well. I thought he actually kind of played worse than the last game. I know he scored, 5 points last time out? Man, this was maybe worse. When they were down 11-5, after Ant hits that 2 after the timeout, J-Dub misses a shot on the other end of the floor for the Thunder. It's still 11-5. Julius Randle just loses the ball, gets it stolen by Alex Caruso. I think that might have been the possession where he put his back to the basket, which he just kept doing. A couple possessions later, Randle just throws the ball out of bounds. Then the Wolves get a steal on one end from Naz Reid, and then Naz loses the ball out of bounds. 2 possessions later, Naz Reid again turns it over. Naz Reid and Julius Randle had 5 turnovers combined in the first quarter and a half. I think they combined for 4. 4 turnovers in the first quarter, the 2 of them combined. The Julius Randle, the thing that gets me the most in this whole series is how many times Julius Randle and Naz Reid turned their back to the basket and tried to back somebody down. And then were shocked when a second defender came and just pickpocketed them. Came from the weak side, snuck up around them, just, batted the ball away. That's what the Thunder do. I thought after game 1, that was coming into the series, it should have been something the Wolves were 100% expecting. And I have to believe the coaching staff warned these guys of this. But somehow in game 5, we're having Naz Reid and Julius Randle turn their back to the basket and just get the ball taken from them. They combined for 9 of the Timberwolves' 21 individual player turnovers in this game. Naz Reid and Julius Randle combined for, did I say 9? I meant, oh yeah, that is 9. Naz had 5 turnovers and Julius Randle had 4. 9 of the Timberwolves' 21 turnovers committed by individual players in this game. Not like non-team turnovers. And 4 of them were in the first quarter. And like probably half of those, at least, were Naz and Julius turning their back to the basket and just getting the ball swiped from them. I just don't understand how they couldn't that hadn't clicked that like, oh, hey, we can't do this. So missed open shots early, especially Jaden McDaniels. Turnovers early, especially Julius Randle and Naz Reid. And what does that mean? What does that add up to? That adds up to a 9-point quarter. Minnesota had 9 points in the opening frame of this game. They were down 26-9. Their worst scoring quarter of the entire season, the worst scoring quarter of any playoff team this year. Minnesota was down 17 after the first frame. And it only got worse in the second quarter. Like the bench was not better than the starters. They were down 17 at the end of the first quarter. They were down 33 at halftime. The lead had been as high as 36. And I don't believe Minnesota ever got it closer than 23. It kind of teetered close to that 20-point mark in the third quarter. And that's where, if you get it under 20, you feel like you can make a run in the fourth. I mean, Minnesota won a game. They were down 24 in OKC earlier this year. Chet Holmgren didn't play in that game. There were guys missing from Minnesota, whatever. They won in overtime. They were down 24 in the fourth quarter. So you had to feel like if you get it below 20, but then OKC kept pushing back, which is what they did. That they've done every game in this series, really.
The Florida Panthers punched their ticket to their 3rd straight Stanley Cup Final.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers.
3 straight trips to the Stanley Cup Final. And to think that how difficult this one was, especially for the Panthers. I mean, yeah, you get Nico Mikkola, AJ Greer, and Sam Reinhart back in this game. AJ Greer didn't play the second half, the last period after taking 1 shift and then not being able to go the rest of the way. They had to do it without Etu in the final 40 after that collision at the end boards. But for the Panthers, making it so difficult on themselves with those poor not breakout passes, those poor passes in the neutral zone, one by Gustav Forsling, the other one by Nico Mikkola, that led to breakaway opportunities for the Carolina Hurricanes. And I was thinking even before that, I'm like, okay, the Panthers are playing some of their worst hockey of the entire playoffs, and the Carolina Hurricanes were cycling the puck all before it, but still not getting their goals. There was 1 2-on-1 stop that Sergei Bobrovsky had that was huge in the beginning of the game on William Carrier, and then there was another stop that Sergei Bobrovsky also had later on in the game. But Bob gets a touch on both of them. The one that from the Mikkola turnover, he screened, but man, how the Panthers just turned it around in the second period. Those 3 goals on 3 consecutive shots. Matthew Tkachuk with a power play goal, and then a secondary assist after breaking up, separating the puck out of Alexander Nikishkin, and then that give and go from Evan Rodriguez from Sam Bennett for his first goal in the postseason. Just how the Panthers turned it on in that 5-minute stretch is just outstanding, and how the Panthers doing it again.
Yeah, it took them about 30 minutes to remember. Oh, by the way, we're the Florida Panthers. We're the defending Stanley Cup champion. We have a system. We have a way we play. Let's start playing it. And that's what what happened. A power play goal. You saw the replays. Matthew Tkachuk standing in front of Freddie Anderson, wanting that, but just throw it to me. I got it. Scores, wins a big board battle, which of course is a huge portion of the Florida Panthers game. Wins the board battle. Frees up Evan Rodriguez. I think was it Seth Jones that had the primary assist on that?
Sam Bennett was
Bennett. Okay. So Bennett had so
Rodriguez's goal.
Yeah. So you play Panther hockey, and you do what those Panther teams seem to do. They win. I'm just kind of a nice a different twist to go down 2-0. Carolina usually when they score first, especially when they score twice. They're a pretty tough hockey team to beat. So to do that, on their ice.
Mhm.
By the way, winning all 3 games on Carolina ice. This team loves winning on the road. It loves ruining the party for the home fans. Um, it sucks that they had to put themselves in the hole, but they dug themselves out, and the result is another Eastern Conference championship.
Yeah, and to think how messy that power play was at the beginning of the game in the first period, both of their power plays that they had, they were losing the initial draw, and then once they were gaining the blue line, the zone, it was the puck was separated, and then Carolina was very comfortable in just flipping the puck out and then just not giving themselves an opportunity there. And also their fourth line was also leading the way in kind of their forecheck chances, but a little bit of a change at the end of the first period that carried over to the second period, which the switching of the lines. Paul Maurice puts Carter Verhaeghe back on that top line. Evan Rodriguez goes on the second. And of course, there's a little bit of the different shuffles that they did throughout the game, especially when AJ Greer went out in the third period for the Panthers. But you think about the amount of penalties that were called on the same kind of play, the holding penalties. One from Seth Jones, he was trying to close the gap. Evan Rodriguez drew one as well after getting tangled up with Kakaniemi. So it was a lot of the same penalty that was being called in the game for the Panthers here, and to think that it was an 0 for 10 drought right before that first one, and then just the floodgates open for the Panthers, and then you think the amount of times that we've seen when the Panthers go with a lead in the third period that they just don't surrender. Once again, Paul Maurice coached Florida Panthers team is undefeated when they go into the third period with a lead. And to think that even before the Carolina Hurricanes scored to make it 3-3, the Panthers were still playing fairly well for them. And of course, unfortunately, they did on their power play in the third to begin the third period. They did unfortunately get gave up a shot on goal that was quite a good amount of quality for the Canes there. And even then, 4 shots in the third period, and one of them was just on another backhanded pass from Gustav Forsling. Not the best night for Gustav Forsling, but the Panthers around him made up for it. 5 different goal scorers on the evening.
Yeah, and how many times do you see Gustav Forsling make the error that he made on that first goal? You don't see it. He's as fundamentally sound as a defenseman as there is in the league. I got a little nervous. I was like, well, Jesus, if Gustav Forsling is going to start making errors like this, it's going to bring it back to Sunrise.
Yeah.
But they just, they dug in. They finally remembered how to play Panthers hockey. You win the board battles. And Carolina was doing that for about the first 30 minutes or so. And thankfully woke up in time, got a little bit of luck on the empty netter there by Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett playing the long game. Okay, I'm going to take a terrible penalty, and then I'm going to come out of the box and salt it away. Good.
Yeah. It's just to think that although they were icing the puck there, the fact that the Canes were on the power play, then it wasted a lot of time. And to think that the one of the shots that Barkov had on that empty netter, it was so well timed, knowing that time will go off and then Bennett's getting out, and then was able to just get it out, get it in. But even before that, 4 minutes after the Carolina Hurricanes tied the game at 3, just the amount of wizardry that Alexander Barkov had to get that puck through the crease with Freddie Anderson on his stomach diving, that puck could have been easily broken up, fights off the check from Dmitry Orlov, gets it back on his forehand to set up Carter Verhaeghe, who just roofed the puck, just so much net for him to get that puck up. And just another goal by Swaggy in the playoffs. This one was the GWG for the Panthers here, but just the amount of the takeover that the Panthers had. There were so many times, especially in that second period, which, of course, in the long change period, if you're in your offensive zone, your bench is the one closer to the net. So there were multiple times where I was seeing that the Aho line was on the ice for a minute and a half, and there was one shift where the Panthers were able to get a minute, a partial change right before puck went to the net. And even there was this one penalty kill where Tomas Nosek and Sam Reinhart were on the ice together. It looked that the Panthers were very comfortable taking away the shooting lanes for the Carolina Hurricanes, and they were on the ice for almost the entirety of the power play there. So just special teams just came to play for at least on the penalty kill. The power play didn't really get it going until they started winning their draws. And to think that the third goal, the one that Marchand set up to Lundell, another goal off an icing and winning that draw, how they adjusted, how they were able to get from losing faceoffs to winning them, very key.
Oh, indeed, yeah, like you said, and that the Lundell goal right off the draw, like you don't see those too terribly often. I can't remember seeing a lot of those from the Panthers, but just sometimes during the course of a game, there's some times where faceoffs are just super important. Other times, but when you have a chance, with tired, defensive unit out there, you've got to win those and put pressure on them. And I don't even, Marchand just threw it right towards the net, right off Lundell's stick, and unbelievable. And going back to the Barkov play on Verhaeghe's goal, Barkov, I think the kids say the words that the kids use. Barkov is a grown ass man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a grown-ass man play. I mean, Dmitry Orlov is no slouch. He had a rough series overall, but to see him just, I guess ragdoll for the lack of a better term, and create a chance in Verhaeghe. Who else could it be to win the series but Verhaeghe? Gets it where it needs to be. Could have made a mistake there, put it in the Anderson's pad. Nope, right up top. Good luck. And like I said, who else could it be?
Yeah, and the fact that the Panthers were able to do it with Rod Brindamore changing up his matchups, being the one with the last change. He was trying to get in the first 2 games. It was the Aho line against the Bennett line, but even tried it against the Barkov line. And hey, 2 goals from that line. Seth Jarvis got the third one, but the Panthers were still. The Barkov line was the one who drew the icing, and then they got the Lundell line on the ice for that third one after the Carolina Hurricanes were tired on that one to make it 3-2 at the time.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. How about that? I love FanDuel because they make betting easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from 3-pointers to steals to assists, there are so many ways to bet your favorite players. Plus, after the game tips, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. Place that first $5 bet on your favorite NFL team. The Green Bay Packers happen to be plus 260 to win the NFC North right now, plus 320 to get over 11.5 wins. Ooh, that's juicy. I might have to go bet that right now. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
The Nuggets introduced David Adelman as their new head coach.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast.
What was your big takeaway from David Adelman's introduction officially as head coach of the Denver Nuggets?
Well, one of the things that he said was he felt ready. He felt ready and had felt ready even dating back before when he ultimately did get the job. The way that he has run these press conferences, I think has actually been really interesting. He has been very direct. He has been very candid. He has been very forward in terms of a lot of the ways that he addresses the media and addresses the comments. He's not beating around the bush with any of this stuff, which I think is very fascinating. He gives us a lot of really good information. And among various things that he said coming out of today was that it is going to be a lot about internal developments and a lot about the progression and the progression in the summer. One of the very first quotes that he shared in terms of this summer was, confidence comes from trust. And I think that trust has to be found throughout the summer. He basically went on and said, yeah, some of it comes from training camp, some of it comes from preseason, some of it comes from the runs that the team does from September. But I noticed Julian Strother in the building. I noticed Jamal Murray in the building. We'll see how long Jamal sticks around and what that looks like. But Julian's going to stay basically for the entire summer once again in Denver. So, folks, David Adelman is going to reward that. And he is going to be a guy that I think rewards the guys that put a whole bunch of work in for this team internally. And he's going, like, if you are here, he is going to play you. I think that we can firmly say that.
There is, okay. I will speak to this more in objective terms rather than my feelings on the subject. The messaging is that Malone was the problem and Booth was the problem in creating the Malone problem. So they both had to go. But now that we've removed Malone, everything will get fixed. That these players are actually good and they just need to develop, and it's Malone's fault they didn't. And that Adelman will develop them. That is the message that is being delivered here by this track is Julian Strother can be a rotation starter caliber player, and Peyton Watson can be a rotation starter caliber player, and Jalen Pickett, and theoretically Hunter Tyson, and Jerron Holmes,
Zeke Naji.
Then Zeke Naji,
player on the team, man.
I mean, is Zeke old? Like, how old is Zeke now?
He's like 24, 25, which is still so young. It's crazy.
Is it?
I mean, when you think about how long Zeke has been here, I would say he still feels like he's not a young guy anymore, but like he should be in his prime with the team 24. And he should be playing a role. Like, and he's not.
He's 24. He's got another year. He doesn't turn 25 till January. I think at this point, I think it's hard to be like, here's the thing. You can reach like your another level at 25, but like you have to have been like, oh yeah, he's definitely like a guy. And we're very much like, I don't know about Zeke still.
Yeah.
So that's the message. And so if you're going to buy into the Denver Nuggets next season, you have to start with, I believe in the young guys. You have to make that choice to say, I believe in the young guys, because that is what they are broadcasting to you, that these guys are good enough, talented enough, and gosh darn, you're going to like them. And so that's the message that's the message that they're going to send here. And that's, I think if you look at all options, I think that's just what they're most comfortable with. I think we'll talk a lot about through the summer about whether that's right or not. And we'll probably kvetch a lot about that decision and then do it again all next year. And it's just going to be really stressful and hard. And can you talk for a minute? I'm getting sad.
Yeah, we'll reevaluate in terms of how hard we decide to kvetch about the whole situation and just whether one championship is okay or not. But I think that it's really important for people to fully acknowledge that David Adelman is a lot closer to Michael Malone than a lot of people realized. There are some things that he would want to do differently. There are some things that he would like to do differently, but he was also a part of that for a reason. And he was a big piece of why this team, they trust him. They like his offense. They like what he can do. But I still have some concerns. And this is not to kind of take away from the fact that David Adelman can be a great coach. It's that there are problems that the team has that changing from Michael Malone to David Adelman may not fix. But here's another quote that I want to throw your way. On playing with professionalism during the regular season, quote, we have to understand that if we want to have our ultimate goal, then our professionalism has to be throughout the whole season. If you want to create, a way that you're able to go through and translate to April or May, and I keep saying translate, that's what it is. That's a step-by-step process throughout the season that will be brought up a lot because we've been this close 2 years in a row to doing something extremely special like we did back in 2023. Sounds to me like the process-oriented takes that I've been having over the course of these past couple of years are pretty they're still coming to the forefront, and Adelman, at least at this point, is trying to lay down at least a little bit of a gauntlet that the way that Denver handled it over the course of these last couple of years was not good enough.
let's set this year aside.
Okay.
How would you say that they failed to do that in 2024?
I think Jamal failed to do that. I don't think that he showed up ready to go. He got hurt. I think that it applied a lot of pressure to the entire rest of the organization, who I think, like, especially the other 4 starters, did do that. Christian Brown wasn't fully ready to step into a larger role in his second season. Peyton Watson still trying to figure things out basically in his first playable season. Reggie Jackson was leading the second unit. Zeke Naji did not step up in a manner begetting a role player or an actual rotation player. But I don't think that, like, their professionalism was a lot better in 24. I just think if you're talking about and identifying any guy, it would be Jamal. And they also brought up conditioning later in the press conference as well. So,
see, it's interesting because everyone jumps to Jamal on that, and I actually don't know if that's what I jump immediately to.
very possible.
So I go to somebody else.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. How about that? I love FanDuel because they make betting easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists, there are so many ways to bet your favorite players. Plus, after the game tips, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Place that first $5 bet on your favorite NFL team. The Green Bay Packers happen to be plus 260 to win the NFC North right now. Plus 320 to get over 11.5 wins. Ooh, that's juicy. I might have to go bet that right now. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Tyon Grant-Foster is officially a Zag, giving Mark Few an insanely deep team.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We got to talk Tyon Grant-Foster. So excited about this. Now, he made his commitment on Wednesday. It was announced by Joe Tipton of On3. Tyon himself announced it on Instagram. The Zags media team has already confirmed it. There is still a pending waiver. And I think that is an important place to kind of start the conversation, is he does need to be approved for a waiver by the NCAA in order to play another season of college basketball. Grant-Foster spent 2 years at the junior college level, 1 full season at Kansas, 2 full seasons at Grand Canyon. He had two seasons basically entirely missed in between there as well. But for Tyon Grant-Foster, it's just kind of a unique situation with having 2 JUCO years, 2 Grand Canyon years, 1 year at Kansas. I think he'll probably get a waiver. I suspect Gonzaga would not have poured so much time and energy into recruiting him and securing this commitment if they didn't feel like it was at least likely that he would be given a waiver. But it is obviously an important caveat with this commitment at this point. That's enough of us kind of being a stick in the mud about this. Let's have some excitement. Tyon Grant-Foster is absolutely outstanding player. 6'7" wing from Kansas City. Again, he began his career at Indiana Hills Community College, where he was a superstar for 2 years at the junior college level, then transferred to Kansas. He was the number 2 ranked junior college player in the country when he joined the Jayhawks. He played 22 games, played about 8 minutes per game as a freshman for the Jayhawks. Again, this was the COVID season as well, so in theory, he should get that eligibility. I'm going to go back to that real quick, because I think that the odds of him getting his extra year of eligibility here are pretty high, since that 1 full season that he played at Kansas did come during the COVID season, the 2021 season. So I would think that it makes it even more likely for Grant-Foster. Regardless, didn't do a whole lot at Kansas. Again, 8 minutes per game, 3 points, 2 boards. But then he transferred to DePaul. And at halftime of his first game with DePaul, Tyon Grant-Foster suffered He collapsed. He collapsed on the floor at halftime in the locker room. Was foaming at the mouth. It was just a terrifying scene. The training staff was able to resuscitate him. He had his heart shocked 3 times while he was at the hospital, which is just, again, horrifying. He was told by medical professionals that he was not going to play basketball again due to all the scarring on his heart from the surgeries that he had. He then had collapsed during a pickup game later and had another heart surgery. But 16 months after that, he was cleared to return to the court. So again, he played just one half of a basketball game at DePaul in the 21-22 season, sat out the entirety of the 22-23 season while he was still recovering from that, and then landed at Grand Canyon for the 23-24 season. Not only did he, in fact, return to play high-level college basketball, he was one of the best players in the country. In his first season at Grand Canyon in 23-24, he averaged 20.1 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, shot 50% on two-pointers, shot 33% from three. He also shot about 74.5% from the free throw line. And folks, that was on over 8 free throw attempts per game. Tyon Grant Foster's first year at Grand Canyon, he was otherworldly good. The Lopes just gave him the ball. He was an incredibly high usage player. He was their point guard. He was their wing. He was their defensive anchor. He led the team in steals and blocks. Like, he was an absolute menace during that season with the Lopes. And he was still effective. I mean, the 33% from three is not great. I'll also say that it's the best he's shot in his career. That is a knock on Grant Foster. But to be number one on the opposing defense's scouting report, to be clearly the best player on your team, to have the best defenders thrown at you, to have teams scheming against you, and to still shoot 50% on two-pointers as a wing, to get to the free throw line 8 times per game. I mean, he was just tremendous. Again, he was named the WAC Player of the Year. He led the conference in scoring. He was also on the WAC tournament MVP as he got Grand Canyon into the NCAA tournament, where as a 12 seed, they were seeded in Spokane, Washington, to take on the 5 seed in that region, which was the St. Mary's Gales. St. Mary's, I'm sure, was not thrilled with a matchup in Spokane, and they were probably less thrilled after Grant Foster took them down. He went 22 points, 7 boards, and a pair of steals on 6 of 13 shooting against St. Mary's in Grand Canyon's 12-5 upset win. And while they were unable to defeat number 4 seed Alabama, who actually went all the way to the Elite 8 that year, Grant Foster was excellent in that game against the Crimson Tide. He had 29 points, 8 boards, 3 blocks on 9 of 22 shooting in that one. After that, Grant Foster was in the NBA draft process and was very likely going to be selected. It was a very weak draft in 2024. Grant Foster had just come off this excellent scoring season. He was 6'7", has the requisite size and skill set to be an NBA player, but he somewhat surprisingly chose instead to remove himself from the NBA draft process and return to Grand Canyon. And unfortunately, that decision did not go great for him. Unfortunately for Grant Foster at the time, good news for Gonzaga now. Grant Foster returns to Grand Canyon in the 24-25 season, and ankle injuries limited him throughout the year. And frankly, I'm not sure he was ever fully healthy last year. He played 26 games. He started 17 of them, played about 27.5 minutes per game, but his numbers just weren't nearly as good as they were in his excellent breakout season in 23-24. This past year for Grand Canyon, Foster still averaged just under 15 points per game, averaged about 6 boards and 2 assists. His three-point shooting plummeted to 23%. He was still effective as a 2-point scorer, just dropped from 50 to 48%, but he only shot 68.5% from the free throw line. Now, that was still on 7 attempts per game, so he was great at getting to the line. He just wasn't nearly as good at converting at the free throw line as he's been in the past. Now, he still finished the season strong, which is part of the reason I think that some of those early season numbers are kind of weighing down his season average last year. And I think I trust more what he was able to do for a full season and what he did in the latter part of this last season as compared to the first part of last year where he really, really struggled. In his final 9 games last year for Grand Canyon, Grant Foster averaged 17.5 points, 5 boards, 2.3 assists, shot 31.5% from 3, 59.5% from 2. That's more like what we kind of saw from Grant Foster in his Player of the Year season. So I think we're inclined to believe that the early season stuff last year was a bit more of an aberration than anything else. He had 18 points on 7 of 12 shooting in the WAC tournament in a win over Cal Baptist. And then getting into the NCAA tournament, Grand Canyon was unable to get a W. This year in the NCAA tournament, they faced Maryland, very, very good Maryland roster in the first game. Grant Foster still very good performance, though, 23 points, 4 boards, and 3 assists. He was 3 of 7 from 3 in that loss to the Terps. Some pros and cons on Grant Foster before we get into looking at what this means for the roster, his specific fit on next year's team, all of that. Obviously, the pros, he's so big. He's 6'7" wing. He's got the requisite size and length on the perimeter to be incredibly disruptive on both ends of the floor. He's an incredibly highly gifted scorer. He's great at getting downhill. He's going to be an absolute menace in transition, getting out to the bucket. He's going to be a bit like Caleb Battle in some ways. He's not built like him. He's longer and skinnier, but he loves getting downhill. He loves scoring at the rim. I think he's going to be great in transition. His score first mentality is kind of what Gonzaga doesn't have right now in the backcourt. They have two great two great front court players in Graham Ike and Braden Huff, who love having the ball, who love scoring the rock. And then they have two like really defensive focused wings in Jalen Warley and Emmanuel Innocente. They have a good 3-point shooter in Adam Miller. They have a good facilitator in Braden Smith, but they were kind of missing like a dog, just missing a dude who could go get a bucket, who could kind of bend the defense, be a focal point offensively. And that's what they get here in Tyon Grant Foster. Again, he's also sneakily, he's averaged more than 1.5 blocks per game in each of the last 2 years. He's a good defensive player. I think the level is going to tick up a bit from the WAC to the WCC, but ultimately I expect Grant Foster to still prove himself as a very good defensive guard. He'll get steals, he'll get blocks, he'll be able to do some stuff, potentially get himself out in transition to get some easy buckets that way. He's also an older prospect, 25, so his experience in college basketball will help this Gonzaga team as well. And he's a great rebounding guard, which Gonzaga's had a lot of great rebounding guards in the past. The cons, the noticeable con, he's just not a great three-point shooter. Career for him is 28% on about 3.5 attempts per game. He's never been a super high volume 3-point shooter. I do expect that there's some Ryan Woolridge effect that could happen here. Whereas what I mean by that, for those who do not know, Ryan Woolridge, of course, played at Gonzaga about 5 years ago, and he transferred from North Texas. Never a great 3-point shooter at North Texas, came to Gonzaga. His 3-point percentage bumped by about 10% because he went from being the focal point of opposing defenses to being like the 4th or 5th option. Grant Foster is still going to be a high option for Gonzaga, but the defense will be forced to honor Braden Huff and Graham Ike. I suspect Grant Foster will get a lot of open looks from three. I don't think he's going to shoot like 40% or anything like that, but if he can shoot 33 to 35% on a relatively low volume, you're going to take that happily with everything else that you get from him. Other stuff, the injury history obviously makes him a little bit of a risk, but I think a risk well worth taking. He's a great at getting to the free throw line, not actually a great free throw shooter, something that could get a little frustrating at times this year. And again, this is a negative for him throughout his career, but not one that I think will impact Gonzaga all that much. He's not a facilitator. Like, he's not a playmaker. For his career, he averages 1.4 assists and 2 turnovers. Now, obviously at Grand Canyon, he did not have as many talented teammates around him, and he was not asked to facilitate. He was not asked to be a passer. I think that, again, that'll change a little bit because he'll be in more of a structured role at Gonzaga, but it is something to note of, like, don't expect him to make a lot of highlight reels because of his passing this upcoming season. But again, that's not what Gonzaga is going to ask him to do. And I think the things that they want him to do are the things that he is most skilled at and has demonstrated a lot of success at in college basketball, which is why this is such a fun and appealing destination, not only for Grant Foster, but for Gonzaga as well.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between the dining out, the online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. Track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Caleb Williams finally set the record straight on his quotes to ESPN.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
Caleb Williams addressing all of the distraction surrounding his quotes to ESPN from before the draft last year about not wanting to be a Chicago Bear and trying to get out of becoming a Chicago Bear, et cetera, et cetera. We all kind of know what the story is now, but now we're getting Caleb's, I don't want to say Caleb's side of it because he was quoted directly in the story, but more like Caleb's correction to it, setting the record straight, just saying like, hey, listen, people have interpreted it in some different ways and maybe missed some of the context here and there. So now we can kind of lay this to rest and say good riddance to the story here. So we'll get some of his correcting of the details, including the whole thing about knowing how to watch film and wanting the coaches to help him with watching film. He kind of spells out what exactly he meant by that and how, kind of like we talked about on this podcast, people were getting that wrong. We'll hear him talk about his relationship with his father and whether Carl Williams could continue to be a naysayer in this and want his son away from the Bears even sometime in the future. It doesn't sound like that's going to be much of a problem. But we'll also hear from Ben Johnson, where he talks about wanting to make some changes to Caleb Williams' body language that I think are meaningful here and are a recognition of hey, like there is merit to some of the stuff, even if it's not anything that's going to be a continued distraction for this team. But Caleb came out, spent like the first couple minutes of a press conference just sort of trying to set the record straight before even answering questions, noted that it's been a distraction and that he felt like it was important to address it. One of the things he pointed out is that Caleb, in the story, of course, met with the Vikings and said he wanted to be a Minnesota Viking and wanted to find a way to become a Minnesota Viking. He said that was true. Of course, he does like the Vikings coaching staff or whatever, but that was before he ever had met really with the Bears. And he said, and he went to the Vikings facility, met with them, really, really loved it. But then once he went to the Bears facility and met with them, he bought in. He was all in and said, I'm going to be a Chicago Bear. I'm not going to do any of this. And that he's really enticed by the challenge of turning the quarterback position around for the Chicago Bears. But the bottom line is Caleb Williams loves being here and has left no doubt that he loves being here. And I think we don't have to worry about this being a continuing problem in the future because of the type of competitor that he is. He sees being the greatest Bears quarterback of all time as a challenge that he wants to strive for. And he is not the kind of competitor who's just going to quit on that at the first sign of trouble, right? If he was going to quit at the first sign of trouble, he would have done that during his rookie season. He would have demanded a trade or whatever. Like if you really didn't want to be here, that was as bad as things were going to get. It shouldn't get messier than midseason offensive coordinator firing, midseason head coach firing, and the whole team falling apart as he's sacked a bunch of times. Like it's never going to be that horrible again. And if he stuck through that, he can stick through all of it. And he's the type of competitor that's not just going to quit and give up on trying to live out this dream of being a legacy type of quarterback for the Chicago Bears and turning this organization around. Like that's what drives a competitor like Caleb Williams, and that's what's going to keep him here through thick and thin. It helps having a head coach like Ben Johnson that's going to be a little bit more hands-on and coach him up the way he wanted to. One of the other things he corrected from the ESPN story was about the coaching staff not helping him watch film. And he was asked, like, hey, how are you watching film differently nowadays? And he did a good job of kind of laughing off the misinterpretation of that and trying to set the record straight on, yes, he knows how to watch film. He's always known how to watch film, but he wanted more from the coaching staff, and you can't really blame him.
That was a funny one that came out. It wasn't that I didn't know how to watch film. It was more or less the sense of learning shortcuts in the sense of, or not learning shortcuts, but learning ways to watch film and be more efficient, learning ways to, pick up things better. And so that was a funny one that came out, that in context and how I was trying to, portray it, didn't get portrayed that way. So it wasn't that I didn't know how to watch film. I was trying to figure out the best ways and more efficient ways so I can watch more film, I can gather more information, so that when I do go out there on game day, that it's, I'm that information that I gathered through Monday when we got back, all the way up to, whatever day the game day is. So when I get out there, I can gather it, I see it, I can react, and it's not me sitting there thinking so much about, the rules and these different things. It's more of a reaction game at that point in muscle memory. So
to that end, what has Ben taught you about those shortcuts or just things that maybe he sees that he wants you to start seeing?
Like I said, I think Ben has been extremely detailed. And so when he talks about the plays, when he talks about the pass, run, screen, play action. He talks about them really in depth. And what we love him versus and what we don't love him versus and things like that. And, just have an idea going into practice, going into soon game days and things like that. It's going to be nice for something that we've been repping and getting after. And, I think that's been one of the things that's been really awesome is the detail and, him really being on top of that. And I mean, he's been in it for 6 years, it's been his offense for 6 years. So, he's really on top of it. And, we're only trying to catch up. I'm only trying to catch up to him and be on the top of the details as much as possible.
So the problem wasn't that, Caleb Williams didn't know how to watch film. And that's not what the ESPN story said, despite people taking it that way. There was people interpreting that someone needed to teach Caleb Williams how to watch film, and that was not the case. That has never really been the case here. But it's about guidance and direction. It's not just saying, hey, here's the game, go back and watch it and see what you did wrong. Of course, he knows how to do that. But it's like to have the coach with you and the details that he's talking about with Ben Johnson there. Like, okay, on this specific play, I missed that receiver there, but against this coverage, what should I do in that situation? Or if this defender had gone here instead of there, should I have thrown the ball to this player instead, or should I have adjusted the protection in this way? Like, it's about having some of that guidance and direction to, yes, anybody can sit and watch film and see kind of what happened on a play, and you or I could turn on the Bears film and kind of get a sense of what went right or wrong on a play. But the whole point of watching it with your coaches is that they know better and they know what's right and wrong and they know all the intimate details. And so for Ben Johnson to be working with him on some of the aspects of like why they're doing things in certain areas at this stage of the process, I think is really important to get that deeper understanding of the plays instead of just kind of letting Caleb Williams figure it out on their own. We've heard Ben Johnson talk about they want to put a lot on his plate and see what he can handle. And that's what this is all about, is load him up with the details. And Ben Johnson had a quote also yesterday talking about how Caleb Williams has been taking really great notes and has been asking really great questions when they're going through these things. I think there seems to be a shared mutual understanding of this learning process, and both the quarterback and head coach trying to get the most out of it for each other to be the most productive that they can be this season on the field. So that all bodes well for this not being an issue. Caleb Williams wanting to be here, being happy to be here, embracing the challenge of being here. But that doesn't mean Ben Johnson doesn't still want him to show that more, not necessarily with his play, but in between the plays. With body language is something that Ben Johnson is putting an extra emphasis on for Caleb Williams and the rest of the roster, DJ Moore in particular. And he gave some good explanation as to why and what that looks like.